I took a call center job for the money. It lasted 3 days. Here's why. This was supposed to be a pretty chill job, $30 to $35 an hour. Sitting there making calls, raising money for charity. It was so far from that. But I ended up feeling like I was stealing money from people who could barely afford their own living expenses. Let me explain. I'm not gonna lie to you and say I'm some sort of freedom fighter or I really enjoyed the fact that I was gonna raise money for charity. Not at all. I actually just took the job for the money. Simple as that, $30 to $35 an hour, bonuses, Fridays off, great. So day one was full of training. We got brought into the office at about 9 a.m., left at 5. The day consisted of training, workshops, working on tonality and all that sort of stuff, and getting familiar with the scripts that they gave us. By the end of the day, at about 4:30 or 4:40, we got told that we should make a few calls for ourselves with our script to actual leads and familiarize ourselves with the script. So we did exactly that. We did about 3, got 1 full pitch done, but a lot of people just no answers or hang up. Hi, this is Lucas from Click, right? Day 2 is kind of when everything sort of felt wrong. So day 2 I would actually class as my first actual day on the job because the first day was training. So I'll just call it first day on the job. So before lunchtime on day 2, realistically day 1 on the phones, I got 4 people to do one-off donations before lunchtime. I was disgusted with myself. So the first one was like, oh great, cool, this is really, really cool. I have a one-off donation, that's incredible. These people weren't really donating because they wanted to. They were donating because I almost guilt tripped them into it with the script that I was given. And I almost was trained to make them feel like they had to. This is almost the worst part of it all. The one-off donations don't fit into the structure bonus, so I have absolutely no benefit from that. So we had quotas every day, KPIs you could say. If you get 4 recurring donations every day for the whole week, you get a $150 bonus on top of your salary, you could say. But one-off donations don't benefit me at all. No commissions, no bonuses, no nothing. So it genuinely felt like I was robbing people who needed the money more than themselves. So by halfway through the day after lunchtime, every time someone would recommend or say that they wanted to do a one-off donation, I would actually steer them clear from it or direct them to the website so that they could just keep going on about their day instead of taking their details on the phone and actually locking in that, because I felt quite gross about myself and I didn't want to keep taking their money. So I just said, if you want to donate, absolutely go onto the website. That'd be great. We really appreciate your support. That's all I did. Honestly, I dissuaded them a little bit. But day 3 was when everything kind of snapped for me. So it's pretty early in the morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock. They got on the phones and were starting to do our dialing. So the quality assurance manager actually listens into several of my calls that morning, which is fine. It's part of the job. It didn't catch me off guard or anything like that. Normal day, he's just listening in, who cares? But this was unbeknownst to me as well. So I didn't really know. But I spoke to a man, probably mid-50s, maybe 40, 50 years old. He said, look, I really appreciate you guys and what you do, and I love supporting what you do, but I unfortunately just cannot donate at all at the moment because I'm 2 months behind on rent. I was like, okay, absolutely. And he also told me stories about him actually doing his own charity work for the exact same charity that I was actually calling for. So he set up parties and events and all that sort of stuff for communities to go and support the charity and raise money, and then he'd send it off and do his own little thing about it. Great, cracker, whatever. He told me he was 2 months behind on rent and that he couldn't afford some of his basic needs. So I said, okay, that is fine. Absolutely. We don't want to put any sort of financial pressure on you. And especially me personally, I don't want to put any sort of financial pressure on anybody. And it's unlike me to be shying away from taking people's money, right? If I'm going to be completely honest. But it felt wrong. So I listed this guy as a do not contact. And that basically takes him off the list and says he's a vulnerable individual. Sue me. I didn't want you guys calling him a week later because his situation isn't going to change. He's not going to win the lottery between today and a week from now. And if he does, great. But I don't think he's going to change in terms of donating to you guys. That's internal monologue. The quality assurance comes over to me and basically says, hey, do you remember this call where the guy, is 2 months behind on rent and you were sympathizing with him and he ran his own sort of foundations and charities and his own projects and that sort of stuff for the cause? I was like, yeah, I do. And he goes, yeah. So you listed him as do not contact. We want to reserve those for people who are like on the disability pension or who genuinely can't afford it, or who are high risk individuals, or who are this or who are that. And I was like, in my head, I was like, this guy can't afford rent and you want me to keep pushing him? I do the second ask, do the third ask, do the fourth ask. I was like, it just like, instead of fundraising, you're just begging at this point. I didn't say that. I was just like, yeah, bro, all good, right? So I just left it at that. And that was playing on my mind all day. And then I also had the quality assurance manager come over to me 2 or 3 more times, listening into several of my other calls saying, you need to be more bubbly, you need to be more this, you need to be more that, you need to do the first ask, the second ask, the fourth ask, whatever, and then try, if they don't want to commit to a monthly subscription, you ask for a one-off donation. And I was just like, that is actual begging, right? And people who are willing to, I'm not even going to get into it, but it is genuinely glorified begging. The quality assurance manager does tell me though, he said, put him as a callback so we can reach out to him in a month. I was like, where is your humanity? How does that even make sense in your mind? How can you be okay with wanting to do that? How can you be okay to try and pressure someone into donating? It is so foreign to me. Where is the humanity? You're saying you're working for charities and making good change in the world? Absolutely not. You're pressuring people, normal people who are going about their day. You're calling them while they're in meetings, it was just ridiculous. I just had to know, like, where is the humanity? So right after lunch, I was done. So I took basically an hour lunch break, sitting down, just eating my lunch. I was thinking to myself, I didn't really want to go there to make friends. I wasn't sitting with anyone, just by myself with my phone and my lunch. And I was thinking about it for a long, long time. It was really playing in the back of my mind. Do I stay? How do I stay? How could I possibly stay? This is not fair on the people that I'm talking to. It's not fun to be in. The office was decrepit. It was awful. There was little natural light. The people were gross. I'm going to be so honest, but they were just gross. And the culture was just a bit pathetic in terms of, you guys are all glorified beggars. Nothing against anyone personally, but you know, go for your life, do whatever you want. But like, it was just ridiculous. How I actually quit, after lunch I came back and I was like, hey, mate, can we just go have a quick chat? And he goes, okay. So we go have a chat and I was like, hey mate, this just isn't for me. And he goes, yeah, I was kind of expecting that. We had a little chat and I was talking about how most charities genuinely cannot hand over their financials for public viewing, or even to just institutions to view and verify, because of the poor resource allocation, because the CEO is on $5 million a year, or because there are just ridiculous fees, or they owe a shell company or PO box in the middle of the Pacific Ocean all of their profit, and they're netting $1 million a year, and that's all they can spend on allocation to the actual cause. So we had a conversation about that, and he goes, look, I get that, but you can't let that poison the well for all the charities. And I was like, look, there was a study done, and it's not a few culprits, it's actually the majority. And he goes, okay, well, the ones that we're doing are actually really, really good. And I was like, okay, bro, no problem at all. He goes, look, I wish you the best with everything else that you decide to do, and everything that, you know, all your future endeavors. And that's all I could really ask of him. So he got my stuff, because I wasn't allowed in the call center after that, which is fine. They have their protocol, and there are people sensitive information on the screen and whatever. It really wasn't too upsetting that I couldn't go back in, and he just gave me my stuff and I left. That's it. It's probably the happiest I've been in about 3 or 4 months walking out of there. I called my dad straight away. I told him I quit, and he goes, yeah, fair enough, it's good. And called Jack straight after, and he was like, why are you so happy? Did you get an early mark, or are you just on lunch and you had a good lunch? And I was like, nope, I left. And he laughed. He actually laughed so hard. So yeah, that's my story. It's terrible. I'm gonna keep calling for my business, because I was calling for another person's business, and that was another overshadowing thought that I had just about every day. So yeah, that's my story about how I quit a call center, basically glorified begging, after 3 days. And I could not have been happier that I actually did pull the pin that day, because I could be sitting there now, because it was easy money, getting complacent, and then basically just kill myself is what I have to do. But I didn't. So yeah, I left because I had mild feelings.